I'm going to start especially by welcoming those of you who are seeing this not today, not this morning, those of you who are seeing it when you're exercising or making dinner, listening to it when you're driving to work. No watching, please, but listening. This really does double as a podcast. The information that is about to be shared with you all by these cutting edge humans and experts who have real human experience in the field is really quite priceless. So I know many of you, even though you are here physically today, will listen to it again, at least bits and pieces of it. And our hope at Your Women's Fund is that you leverage this treasure of this expertise, of this time that these brilliant souls are offering to us today to share their wisdom and their insights about the current state of the online mind, mental health, and safety in the digital age, this ever-changing scenario. We do hope that you will share that you got benefit and that you can share this recording. It will be available tomorrow, both on our website and our YouTube, and we encourage you to utilize it and to wield it. Please consider your recording for your use in whatever meetings you have, classes, etc. So we will tell you one thing, your focus is our power. And we have the focus of some amazing people. We have a fantastic board, and I see many of our board members joining here, and I know the rest of them will see the recording afterwards. We could not do this work without you, and we honor and respect your contributions. We have quite a few folks from the offices of elected officials who signed up to join us today. Community partners, really, this is for you, and it's from you. There are infinite contributions from our very brilliant community partners that form part of each and every Impact Collaborative. We learn from you and we try and give back. And Marilyn Gladstone, our founder, we always honor and thank you. Citrus Health Network not only does brilliant work in the community, but they also work in collaboration with us. And as our health and well-being sponsors, pillar sponsors, we thank you today and every day. So onward we go. Our next segment is always our research and data. And so I'm going to ask Viviana to join us quickly and focus us on our research and data pillar. Viv.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Viviana Varela Pacheco. I'm the Senior Research and Policy Manager at the Women's Fund of Miami-Dade. And today I'm just giving a glimpse into part of our Gender Equity Index, which measures how far Miami-Dade is from reaching gender equity. Here we highlight our health and well-being score. For 2022, the score was 44 points. So as you can see on that grid, we have a far to go, but that's okay because we're working towards that. And some of the things that we included as part of the health and well-being score are health insurance, maternal morbidity, infant mortality, and teenage pregnancy. We haven't included mental health, and I think that's something that we would want to consider in the future as it is such an important part of our overall health and well-being score. Next slide, please. If you'd love to learn more, we have a policy paper that has great information. There's also a couple of one-pagers if you just want to browse through quickly that you can access on the Gender Equity Index page. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Viviana. We have a lot of rich information today, and so I'm going to pass it over quickly to former board member, current general counsel of the Women's Fund, global speaker, podcaster, law professor, and I'm not going to fill in any more blanks because I want to leave the time to you, Marcia Ryan Weldon. Thank you very much.
Good morning, and I'm thrilled to be here. This is a topic that I have a passion for. As Maria mentioned, I am a law professor. I'm also a college professor, so I see the effect of the mental health and safety in the digital age every day. I also work with a lot of women lawyers, and I see the effect on them as well. And I'd like to just go ahead and get started. Social media, everybody uses it. The Women's Fund is very active on social media, so please make sure that you're following us. But let's think about women and girls, and especially young girls. This is a recent statistic about how often students and kids are on social media. YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, and Facebook basically is relatively for the old people, so they're not on there anymore. But why is this important? When we think about online, this affects mental health, body image. There's actually a study that Dove did that they said 7 out of 10 young girls said they feel better when they feel better about themselves when they're not using social media. As it relates to, by the way, the statistic about almost constantly, Black and Hispanic teenagers are 5 times more likely than white teenagers to say that they are on social media almost constantly. This, of course, has significant detrimental effects. Let's go to the next slide, please. Cyberbullying is one of the things I worry about the most, especially for women and girls. And you can see almost half of people that were interviewed by the Pew Research in 2023, this was 2022, said that they've been the victim of cyberbullying. The lowest one, which is on the bottom, having explicit images of them shared without their consent, is the one that is what I'm going to focus on. I want to focus on the concept of sextortion and deep fakes, because I think this is the bigger issue. And what I'm going to do actually is tie it to our 4 pillars. Next slide, please. Back 1 slide. So if you can put it in the chat, how many of you have heard of a deep fake or even know what it is? I'd like to be interactive because I am a professor. I want to make sure that we're all involved. So just say me or no. But this is basically a hyper-realistic image generated by AI. So I see some no's, this is good. If you have any image of you or your voice anywhere on social media, you could possibly be a deepfake victim. And while it can be used for certain things, they're actually using these algorithms to show images of people who have passed on. They've used it in history classes so they can bring George Washington to life in history. But what I want to talk about is a potential negative impact. Next slide, please. So I'm going to give you an example of what it looks like. You're going to have to unmute. I don't hear it. Can you all hear it?
No, Daniela, you're gonna have to unmute, sorry.
1 second.
I am not Morgan Freeman. What you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being?
You can stop there. Why is this important? This is Morgan Freeman. We all know who he is. Most of you would not be able to recognize that that's not a deep fake, but let's go to the next slide. What if it's a woman in politics? One of the Women's Fund's pillars is leadership. What we're seeing now is deep fakes being used, specifically targeting female politicians to get them unengaged from the civic process. So this is a picture of Kamala Harris. On Twitter, otherwise known as X, a person put up a parody of her saying, "I'm the ultimate diversity hire." It was labeled as a parody. Elon Musk then retweeted it, did not say it was a parody, said this is amazing, and 98 million people saw it. This has been happening to women leaders all over the world, Italy, the UK, AOC, others, and especially around the times of political campaigns, basically meant to deter women from wanting to be part of leadership. Next slide. Economic mobility is another one of ours. I've got a picture of Taylor Swift here. Some of you may have heard that Taylor Swift was the victim of a massive deep fake, where pictures of her in the nude, not really her, were circulated worldwide. Taylor Swift can handle that. The woman on the right is a woman that probably could not. I want you to imagine if you were a working woman and nude pictures of you that were not really you were circulating around the internet. How much would you have to spend to get a lawyer to find a way to get that off of the internet, which, by the way, is almost impossible? How might this affect your ability to get a job if people did a Google search of you and found it? This is what's happening to women and girls around the world right now. Next slide. We're talking about women's health and mental health. What you're now finding is deep fakes being used around the world, especially with young girls who are now taking their lives. This is a young girl who took her life because she was being bullied online, first of all, and nude pictures were around her. You're seeing people with blackmail, people being forced to stay in relationships with abusers when they're told, if you don't stay with me, I will put pictures of you online. It used to be that people would put consensual pictures that were taken consensually, and then the parties broke up, and then they put the pictures online. Now the technology is so good that they're using it in the context of somebody's face and then someone else's body. Clearly, this leads to significant impacts on mental health, the stigma, and my biggest concern is what's happening to younger girls. Next slide, please. Florida was the first state to have a situation where young boys were arrested. In Miami-Dade, December 2023, 2 boys ages 13 and 14 were arrested for doing deep fakes of girls ages 12 and 13. Florida actually has a law that can make this a 3rd-degree felony. The victim gets the chance to sue for $10,000, but imagine the irreparable harm. You have the picture in the video on the bottom, Westfield High School, dozens of girls were in fact deep faked, nude pictures by their classmates circulated online. By the way, what do the algorithms on online promote? Things that get lots of clicks. So any place that it's online where they're going to get lots of clicks. I actually listened to an interview of one of these young girls, and one girl heard about it. She went to the principal's office. The principal quietly found the boys and reached out to them. They got suspended for a couple of days, but the girls who were victimized, their names were called out over the loudspeaker, so everybody knew who they were. On the top, there is now a deepfake crisis going on in South Korea, which is the most digital native country in the world, where women are now taking their pictures off of social media because they're afraid of deepfakes. It's affecting hundreds and hundreds of people there. Next slide, please. Think about this in the context of gender-based violence. When they did a study across 18 countries, you found that 60% of people had been a victim in some way of an online harm. LGBTQ plus people, much, much higher incidence. But most important, 96% of deepfake content involves women. 96%. 99% of that is pornographic images that are non-consensual. Next slide, please. One of the things we also talk about the Women's Fund is freedom from violence. You have issues now of virtual kidnappings. This is a woman who testified before Congress because they cloned her daughter's voice. And they said, we've got your daughter. We want $1 million. Fortunately, she was able to find out where her daughter was and didn't worry about it. But here's the thing. Her daughter had no pictures of herself on social media. Her daughter had some audio of herself on social media when she was talking about sports for school. But they were able to clone her daughter's voice and use it in that context. There are the concepts of people paying ransom for virtual kidnappings because, again, they don't necessarily know. And clearly, and I know some of our guests will also talk about this in the context of human trafficking, and so I'm not going to get into that area. But this is where I get concerned because we don't have the technology that can stop it. There are some companies like Intel that's actually being able to look at the pixels and pictures to look at blood flow to see if it works, but it hasn't been independently verified yet. Next slide. It doesn't just affect our young girls. Sextortion is almost exclusively with young boys. This is a young boy who took his life. He was 17 years old because he thought he was texting with a 19-year-old woman who was a scammer. She sent naked pictures of herself to him. Him being a 17-year-old boy sent pictures back. It ended up being somebody much older who said, if you don't send me money, I am going to share your pictures all over social media. And he took his life 2 days before Thanksgiving. So sextortion is an area that's now targeting kids 14 to 17, particularly males who are going to be afraid to report it. And the thought is that their naked pictures will be all over the internet. Next slide. So what are we going to do about this? Number one, we have to vote at every level. We all know this, the Women's Fund, we talk about this, but that's at the school board level, at the state level, at the federal level. There are very few there's no federal laws in place that are going to specifically target this. There's legislation that's pending, but nothing is passed. Different states have different laws. And what do we know about online? Things go across the borders. So if you have a law in Oklahoma, it may or may not protect you in Florida. Think about what the appropriate punishment might be. And this is a difficult situation. Typically, the person who's doing the deepfake is a male. But what if it's a young teenage boy? Should we criminalize that person? Should they be on a sex offender registry? How do we hold them responsible? But is suspension from school enough when we know that this is going to affect these young girls for the rest of their lives? What about the right to sue the developers of these denudification software? Right now, that doesn't exist in most places. What about our schools? What kind of action should they take? And then how can we stay more informed and more vigilant? So I'm going to end here. Happy to take questions. I talk about deepfakes in lots of different contexts. Obviously, we're in a political election right now. 60% of the democratized nations in the world are having elections. I've actually spoken about this to governments because it's a very, very big issue. But for the context of the Women's Fund, my real concern is how is this going to affect us as women and girls? And how are we going to meet the 4 pillars if people are going to be afraid to run for office, are going to have situations where their economic reputation can be ruined, where they can have significant mental health crises, where we already know there's a mental health crisis among young women and girls. This could make things so much worse, and where social media is actually everywhere. So with that, I'm going to stop.
And Marcia, we're going to ask you to join the Q&A portion. That is absolutely powerful. Everybody knows how this Impact Collaborative works, but I will reinforce that we're going to be conducting 3 polls throughout. Please, please, please participate in the polls. Please post your questions in the Q&A icon. We'll get to as many as we can at the end, and please do fill out the survey at the end. You know, research is one of our main programs, and so we are utilizing that data. It helps us, so please do. Now, our purpose today is the same as always, to focus you and enable each of our participants to be able to take action. So all of our panelists are going to help us to do that. In addition to Marcia's keynote, don't be scared, be prepared is our underlying theme. And first, we're going to ask Toshiba Mitchell to do the impossible. Don't be scared. Are you prepared to introduce yourself in 2 minutes or less, Toshiba?
I am, and I am excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you, Ms. Marcia, for sharing that innovative and cutting edge information. As I work with children in our community, and I have the privilege of sharing with their parents and community members, and even with them through Christie House and our mission to eradicate child abuse and child sexual abuse, we actually go out in the community and share this information. And I'm happy to hear that we are sharing it not only in the context of keeping our children safe from the parental perspective, but also we do that in the child space. And I like that you mentioned the alarming statistics regarding the deep fakes. We are really sharing that information with the young people because they are greatly affected. As we reach out to them in the school system, we tell them about Gavin, much as like the young man who you mentioned who unfortunately committed suicide after being extorted online. Gavin's law was created because of the same reason. And you're absolutely correct in your call to action that we need to vote so that this legislation can be passed that protects our kids and protects us in the communities. And again, so I'm Toshiba Mitchell. I am the Director of Prevention Education with Christie House, and we have the honor of doing this work and sharing with our community the awareness and prevention, because we have found that through knowledge and education, we can combat these unfortunate experiences. And so we really give our children the voice that they need and the parents the resources and awareness that they need in order to keep them safe. So I'm happy to be here to share. I want to continue to collaborate with each of you. So please feel free to reach out. My information is there, and you can always contact the Women's Fund to get in touch with us for sharing.
That's right. And we're going to include it in one of the polls. You can say that you'd like to be directly connected with our panelists today, because we invite you to your Central Scare of the Women's Fund, but then everybody gets to keep on, please, carrying on.
Thank you.
Emily, you've you've got so many things to say about yourself, but tell us in 2 minutes or less, please, why are you here with us today?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Émilie Caillon. I'm the founder of 2 Million Children, and I'm really grateful to be here with all of you to talk about the importance of focusing on mental health and being safe online. So first, I want to thank Maria and the Women's Fund for organizing this important conversation. So we started 2 Million Children last year. We're 4 mothers of school-age children, and we were worried about our children being safe online. 2 of our members are prosecutors. And so we decided to focus on combating child sex trafficking by focusing on prevention and awareness. So 2 Million Children is in reference of the 2 million children that are being sexually exploited every year in the world. And so our mission is really here in Miami in raising awareness and doing prevention. Very much so, just like Toshiba, and we're working with a lot of our partners like Christie House. And so what we do is we open the conversation in communities, in families, in schools. What we want to do is demystify this taboo subject, and that we want to open those conversations, make them dinner table conversation. What is sextortion? What is sexual abuse? And what can we do to protect ourselves? So we're disseminating information about the current rate of crime online, just like sextortion, grooming, what are the hot platforms and hot social media areas where the groomers are on. And we organize presentations. So we work with FBI agents, prosecutors, victims, and we curate presentations to schools and communities. So if you are interested in bringing this information, which we make it very age appropriate, we can bring it to your community. Just reach out to us.
We'll make sure that everybody gets connected. Thank you so much.
you.
And Sandy Scalani, you have been here before, but never in this role. So give us the 2-minute version of what you're working on today.
Hi, everybody. First of all, what a powerful start to this presentation today. So I'm the COO and head of partnerships at Parasol Cooperative. Parasol Cooperative is a nonprofit tech company. That's what we like to say, because we are actually a tech company. We build technology. We are founded and run by very experienced technologists in the field, and also survivors and survivor leaders and advocates. And so we have what I like to say a really good blend of, we're not a tech company trying to build technology for users they don't understand very well, and we're not nonprofits and advocates trying to build technology to help people that they don't understand how to build technology. So we have a really great mix of that. Our mission is to protect lives through building technology and services that can help prevent and protect people from domestic violence, human trafficking, and technology facilitated abuse. So I really look forward to sharing a little bit about what we're doing at the end of this.
Terrific, terrific, terrific. So now we're going to go to the second segment. So we're going to ask each of our panelists in 3 minutes or less to tell us what we need to know. What are you seeing in your day-to-day work? And we're going to start with you, Toshiba.
So we're finding that there's a rise in our children being solicited through their video gaming systems. When you hear things like Minecraft and Dress to Impress, we come from the age, I know I do, and where we had a physical console where we played our video games with Atari or Nintendo. You had to be in the room with someone. Well, what we're seeing now is that the games are global, right? They're worldwide web gaming systems that they're using, or gaming platforms that they're on. And they're being asked different questions, from how old they are to take off an item, playing a game of banter in that way. And so we're sharing with them to any time that they are asked a question, even a simple, how old are you question, because that's how the predator starts, with something so simple that they're comfortable with answering without parental, involvement. But we're asking and we're sharing with our children to not even respond to go and get a safe adult and reporting it to that safe adult. We also are asking them through the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children. They've shared with us not to have the student or not to have the child delete their accounts, having them block the account. So what we're sharing also is a list of directions for each of the platforms that they're on that gives them the directions for how to block the user without deleting their accounts. Because when they delete the accounts, all of the information or tracking goes away. We kind of have to start again. And so we're really seeing an uptick in that. Some statistics relative to online enticement reports surged by 97.5% after COVID. And so we know that's because many of us and many of them really we went online and we had to work and live online. And so of course there was an upspike in that. We want to make sure just to be able to, we share with parents, providing those parental parameters or boundaries for them, limiting time online or limiting the closure of space where if they're in a home office or if they're in their rooms, really making those communal environments where it's a living room or as my colleague mentioned, if a dinner table conversation and opening up those conversations to the kids and their families to make it more comfortable so they can share. I even encourage parents to get involved on the games, where they're playing the games, to join in or find out what's happening or learn more about the game system itself so they can be aware of when they hear those hot topic things come up like, oh, someone asked me my age, or, oh, they're even asking the young men just to remove the shirt. And it may seem simple and very innocent to a young boy even because he's thinking he doesn't have anything to protect there. But the predator leads into see how far they can get them to go. And so we're really seeing that at an alarming rate. And we want to make sure to share that, with our children that, nope, this is not, we're here to play the game. We're not here to have a conversation in that way. I really encourage them to have the game with friends that they know in what they call IRL in real life. And so we encourage that behavior too, is like making connections in real life still. And we have to model that as parents, right? Having those social connections, even play dates again, where, we're coming back to a place of togetherness. So coming back together in real life again and really modeling that for our children so that they're not, because they are of the digital age, right? So they are comfortable, they're natives.
Fantastic.
So, yes.
Fantastic. And we're going to ask you to come back to more solutions very, very shortly. Emily, what are you seeing?
So I think I have a slide. So what we are seeing is the proportionality of the level of the children spending time on their device versus their level of happiness. And it seems like how we could see here, it's really alarming. I think no one has any clue. Actually, parents don't have any clue. Children don't have any clue. And I think even parents are ashamed because they don't know how to help their children. They don't know what's going on online. And I think nobody would just talks about it. We want to have solutions, but we're also kind of ashamed that we don't know how this works. So we could see teen girls spend on average almost 5 hours on social media a day, which it's alarming. So I think it's very important to see that the increase in unhappiness correlates to the fact that they spend even more time on their device. Another alarming thing is 54% of teens reported that they first saw online pornography when they were 13 or younger. And we know now one of the big issue, I believe, in creating this new breed of child sex, offenders and predators is because the pornography has become such a violent and toxic environment. So these boys, they're watching pornography and their brain is getting used to this toxic dynamic in relationships. And so this is really important. We could go to the next slide as well to realize that the brain does not know the difference. And I'm teaching some neuroscience concepts and on the psychology and the physiology of the brain. And the brain doesn't know the difference between what's happening right now in your current outer environment and what's happening in your imagination. So when these kids are online, whether they're watching YouTube or pornographic contents or being bullied, it's as real to them as if it was happening in at school. So again, I think we're going to talk about some solutions, but children, as we know, are very impressionable. And so there is this creation of addiction as well that we need to discuss, how we can help our children to get off those devices. I think one thing that we've been also suggesting that I do with my daughters, who's 12, is that she has a phone, and she doesn't necessarily use it every day. So maybe we'll give it to her every other day. So I think it's one thing for parents to maybe empower them, is to say, hey, it's not because you're going to get your child a phone that they have to have it 24/7. You can monitor how long they're on there, and it doesn't have to be an everyday thing.
Perfect. So it's wonderful that you mentioned that the CEO of Christie House, Amanda Altman, is here, and we're all working together on this issue. And she said that, shame is one of the things that prohibits many parents as well from doing something about it. They feel disempowered. And we're going to ask you, Sandy, to help us to not be scared, but to be prepared.
I might make you a little scared first before I make you prepared. So what we have here that is kind of an overview of what tech facilitated abuse looks like. So I think that what's important is that we tend to have a fear still of stranger danger and that kind of IRL type of abuse in real life.
Mm-hmm.
And that exists, but it's really important to understand that more and more, all of these forms of abuse are happening online. And we work a lot with victim service providers and organizations that provide services to domestic violence, human trafficking victims. And what we're finding is like 98% of the survivors of abuse are actually also being abused using the technology and the devices and online as well. So it's not just a kind of individual risk, it's also an exacerbated risk for people that are already in abusive relationships or trying to escape abuse. And it makes it even more difficult for them to leave. So some of the forms of abuse that we're seeing is the surveillance and monitoring, like the stalkerware, spyware, actual applications that can be downloaded onto the phone. Just basic social media surveillance, keeping track of people through their social media, or the location tracking, the GPS, air tags, and things like that. What's not up here should be up here is sometimes abusers will track their partners through their children's devices. If you have children's devices that are surveillance devices like Life 360 or the phones meant for children, abusers can track their partners through that as well. Identity exposure and control. So doxing is basically like putting your public information out there. So, your address, your full name, any private comments, personal information that then the public can, have a field day with. Account hacking, basically taking over your Instagram, things like that, impersonating you, or even impersonating other people on social media so that then they can access you and control you through that way. Harassment, manipulation. We talked about online harassment. We talked about cyberbullying. There's cyber stalking, the non-consensual image sharing, the revenge porn, as we call it. IoT gaslighting, also very interesting. The smart homes that we have, they are connected.
I think that it was Sandy who froze, not me. And so we'll give it 1 second to see if Sandy's
By an account. If you actually are in some kind of abuse, they can use that. They can
Sandy?
manipulate I'm still here. Are you?
Oh, there you go. Well, you froze for a second there.
Oh, okay. So yeah, the gaslighting can be done by abusers over, any kind of smart device, smart home device, or through cars that are connected. things like that. Earlier, we talked a lot about the sextortion. That's a very big and growing problem, but also the internet can be used for any kind of recruitment, fake job offers, romance schemes, advertising, facilitating human trafficking. And then we're also seeing, a lot of your finances are done online now as well. So all your financial apps, your bank apps, and those things can also be accessed by people that might seek to do harm. And also identity theft, credit card fraud, and then your emerging technologies. The virtual reality world is, we're just the tip of the iceberg right now looking at that, but that is basically a whole nother universe that people are interacting with each other with their avatars within, but there's no rules. I heard once there was a volunteer VR police force in there trying to make sure that people weren't harassing each other with their avatars in that space. But that's a whole space that we've barely touched as far as like understanding how people are getting abused in there. And then the deep fakes, you went into great information about that. And then of course, there's dark web marketplaces, which are basically like internet that isn't traceable and it's anonymized. So people are using those marketplaces to sell sex with children, to drugs, hire people to murder other people. So the dark web is a place to facilitate that kind of those kinds of sales. So did I scare you enough? Okay.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna leave you there.
Well done. Well done. We'll come back to you for the fixes, and because we need them, all of us. Toshiba, give us a fishing pole. Tell us, what can we do about it?
The first thing is, I heard someone, and I know Amanda mentioned also, and it's so true that sometimes we feel like we've let our families down as parents and we don't know what to do. We feel sometimes responsible. Well, knowing and letting them know they're not alone. There is a great site, takeitdown.com, when we put up things, or our children put up things that they regret later, right? Just in the heat of the moment, or maybe they share something, or even some of these deep fakes. There are ways that we can help them through that. Takeitdown.com, and I'll share their information in the chat, is definitely one that I recommend and I promote with all of the young people, especially as they're living their young life. And, they make those types of mistakes that they feel like they can't come back from, and that they're not alone. When we see, again, spaces like Gavin's Law and those young men who are being intentionally solicited and targeted online and then exploited and extorted, letting them know they're not alone, that they can always come to us as a safe and trusted adult in their lives, and we'll help them to get the help they need, that they haven't made a damning mistake, that it can be resolved, that we can help them through it. So I believe that's the main thing that I want to give as a takeaway today, is takeitdown.com for sure.
I think we just re-edited your key takeaway from this Impact Collaborative today. There we go. Fantastic. Emily, help us. What can we do?
Yes, so I have a couple slides. This is my favorite part, solutions. So as we know, for the kids, social media is being social. That's their way of being social. So it's not going to go away. This is something that we want to really tackle. And also, how do we conduct it into a vehicle of happiness, right? How do we become creators online and not consumers? So I always encourage children to be aware when they are consuming versus when they are creating, being online. So a few things for parents, instead of scaring them and restriction, how do we empower them and equip them with the right guidelines and information? How can we be proactive? How can we huddle with them, like hang out? We need that. Again, it's hard because they're on their device, but we want to foster that physical connection with them so they can open up and share with us important information. And so we can go to the next slide, please. So this is about also living up to the standards ourselves as role model, as parents, because I think as adults, we are also having to deal with our own addictions to our devices and how, learning how to navigate this online world. So as we repeated, I'm going to repeat a few things, but, protecting your privacy, how not to share personal information online, how to handle the pressure, especially if we're on social media, of not comparing ourselves to each other. We all have our own timing in life. How do we strike a balance between spending time in person with people and on our devices? So, I think it's about in our business, in our homes, can we create those code of how we're going to handle our device so our device don't own us, right? And then we can go to the next slide. So these are the topics that we talk about to children. And I have to tell you, we have conducted a middle school presentation with a prosecutor and an FBI agent, and it was completely PG. We've never used the word sex or nudity or nothing. We just say, we don't want to show pictures of us with skin. We don't show our skin online. We can be extorted by people that are catfishing, that are presenting themselves as people that they are not, and they're going to start building that connection with you. They're going to start asking you for pictures, and then they're going to blackmail you. So there's many ways for parents and caregivers and teachers to send a message to children and really use a very appropriate content and language. So these are, again, healthy relationship, grooming, sextortion. Romeo pimp is a big one. How these guys connect with the girls, they lavish them with gifts, make them feel loved, and then they start controlling them. So that's very important for girls to understand as well. And we can go to the next slide. So how do we start conversation as parents? So we can, in the car, it's always a good time to talk about this. At the dinner table, when we get to all sit together, and just ask, hey, I heard this story, or today I was on a panel, I heard that conversation. Have you heard of sextortion, or have you heard of grooming? Did you ever receive an inappropriate message on your social media? Because we want to be, as parents, the go-to person for our children, don't we? So it's very important that we foster that connection. Another guideline that we like to offer is to have, when children or teens are on their devices, that they use them in the family room. So you could go around, you can kind of keep an eye on what they're watching on YouTube, if they're talking to people. And usually when you walk into the room and you see they're like clicking off something, that means, we need to really check in and see which kind of content are they watching, because again, their brain thinks it's happening in reality, and they're building this frame of mind of how the world works through, this YouTube videos. So we want to supervise. And then again, like Toshiba said, it's very important that we tell them that no matter what, we love them, and they can come to us with anything. There's no big enough mistake that they can make that would make us stop loving them. So again, when we remove the shame and we talk about these things as a very natural process, I think it helps everybody to come out, and especially children also going through sexual abuse. A lot of children don't even know they're being sexually abused because no one talks about it. And so we really need to reiterate that, your body is yours. No one gets to touch your body or your privates, and that it's okay to talk about it. And then if you made a mistake and sent a nude picture on your social media, you know what, it happens. We all make a mistake, but let's fix it together. We can all fix it together as communities, as families, as long as we open the conversation.
This is so true. It's really taken us by storm. I mean, we all know about the internet, but it's all so new. It's really important that we have these tools, and Sandy Scalini and Parasol have some for us. Tell us about them, please, Sandy. We've got about 3 minutes for this part.
Okay, it's not going to be 3 minutes, but I'll do my best.
3.5.
So what I'm about to show you is our AI chat assistant called Ruth. You can flip to the next slide. We've created Ruth to be, fill the gaps in the information. So I gave you the whole landscape of online abuse. There's no way that any of us can keep all the data in our head about what we understand about that and what we need to do about that. So we're leveraging emerging technology to be able to help facilitate people getting help and preventing these things. So this is a survivor-built, survivor-centered app. It's trauma informed. It's different. It's like a chat GPT. It's like a large language model because it's based on it at the core, but then we've trained around it to be trauma informed and completely private. When you go into to use it, it doesn't collect your email. It doesn't collect any user information. None of your questions or queries will go back to the training. It just you shut it and the information is gone. So can you go ahead to the next slide and I will walk you through. The next slide is a quick little demo video. So you can see this is our website. If you go onto our website, you can click into Ruth, start chatting. Is the video playing? Oh, for a second, I thought that was part of the video. So I'll say the ways that this is trauma informed. This is a video, so you might have to click the play button. Or maybe not. I can play it straight from the video if you want to give me control.
Should we give, great, give Sandy control. Thank you.
Got to give me control. Here we go. So you can see at the top, we have a quick exit button. It asks you what language you speak. It speaks over 90 languages at this point. And then it tells you, the limitations of AI and things like that. And I say I have a 14-year-old daughter who might be lured on IG. What should I do? And it will spit out sensitive. First of all, it says, I'm sorry. It gives you an empathetic response and all of that stuff. And then it gives you kind of advice on what to do. And then it asks you follow-up questions, right? I need to understand how to bring this up with her in a way that she won't be defensive because we know 14-year-old daughters, right? We're not getting along lately. So what you do with a LLM type of chatbot, you have to give it some context and it will reply, right? So I'm saying we're not getting along. So now it's giving more detail into how it's responding. Use I statements, be a good listener. It's giving you advice on how to respond to this situation. And then, hey, do you want some conversation starters? Yes. And you can direct it in any way you want. If you want more stats, it'll give you more stats. If you want to create a digital safety plan, it'll do that for you. If you want to just get a list of resources in your local area, it'll give you phone numbers and websites for organizations that can help. But this is the really fun thing. This is for parents. I'm using it as a parent here. Can we role play this? And so you can actually use it to role play. And then it'll give you feedback. So if you want to play out a role play, an extensive role play, it's really interesting because it'll give you can say, okay, and role play, give me a feedback or whatever. But you can see how it plays the daughter. Okay, what about it? Right. So, and it'll say like rolls eyes and things like that. But the important thing is that it's trying to, it works in a way to help you to learn how to manage it, how to bring up these topics with your kids. But it can also be, and it gives you some feedback. Good start. You brought up the topic, but now your daughter's feeling defensive. Remember to stay calm and use I statements. And we've used this, like the use case for this is endless. So advocates, only less than half of advocates that work with victims understand how to navigate the digital space. So this is also trained to be able to help people do digital safety planning for their clients as well. So it takes you step by step through all the different devices. It can give you instructions on how to do two-factor authentication on specific apps and things like that. So you just have to ask whatever you want it to do for you, and it will be able to help with that. And so this is free to use on our website. And, we just ask if you test it out in all the languages. We definitely need more language verification. And you can submit your feedback on the link right at the top of the website there. So I can test this for hours, and please go and play with it. It's a beautiful, beautiful tool. It's been so helpful for people, and it's even helped walk a parent through a situation of sextortion in real time. So
amazing, Sandy. So please use the chat, everybody. Put in the information. Folks, start adding more of your questions, please, to the Q&A. Everybody sends them to me via text or puts them in the chat. But if you please add questions to the Q&A. We're going to ask you, Marcia, to please join us. The first question that was texted to me was, I remember Christy House years ago came and talked to my daughter's school. Do you still do that?
Yes, absolutely. Please connect with us. We'll love to come out and share on this topic and others that helps to keep the children safe in our community. So please share, connect with us. I can drop my information in the chat, or should I?
Absolutely, please. Everybody, this is your plaza. So whether you're listening in today in the audience or whether you're on screen, this chat is yours. And we do, in the polls that hopefully everybody participated in, do have the opportunity. Our team does a lot of work behind the scenes, and they'll make sure that, if somebody wants to talk to you, Emily, or be connected to you to Shiva, or wants to know more about the app, Sandy, that they can, Daniela from our team is amazing. We'll put you in direct touch. So the second question, Marcia, that I saw was actually you asking Toshiba about, do you want to go ahead and ask your question? How much you're seeing?
She did answer it, but I think it's helpful she can answer it again. And also maybe for all of you, because it mentioned virtual reality. So I also teach a class in ethics and technology, and we're dealing with virtual reality and VR and AR in the context of, from an ethical perspective, what's the role of parents versus technologists versus the legislature, et cetera. So I asked them about their usage, and about 70% of them are using it. Many of them said they are concerned about if it stops making them dizzy, they're going to get addicted, pretty much is what they said, because a lot of it gets them pretty dizzy. So I'm just wondering, when do you think you'll start looking at that? Because I think that's going to be a bigger frontier. And then a second question, or maybe a second point, is we talked about social media companies earlier with my students, and many of them, we looked at some of the bans that are out about social media in some of the states, and many of them said if they had it to do all over again, they wish their parents would have banned them from using social media. So I just thought I would let them know that for the parents. One of the kids was not allowed to use social media until she was 16. And she said she's much more well-adjusted than the rest of her friends and family. But they said if they don't want to admit it, so they admitted it to me. So I'm telling you all as parents. Now, obviously, it's very difficult to try to ban that. And, they can get a second phone, they can use their friend's phone. There's a lot of different things, but I think a lot of them do realize the effect it has. And when I surveyed my students, almost all of them said that they get their news from social media, which is a scarier thought, because again, I'm not sure that they're going to become the most literate, informed members of society because of the algorithms that basically will show you what you want to see. So that's just another thing to point out.
Our next question comes from the wonderful Gladys Mizrahi from Power of the Heels. How can individuals overcome the psychological effects of PTSD after facing a cyber attack during an election, and what strategies can help build resilience and trust in the digital landscape? Who would like to take that one?
I mean, I could take it. I think that the important thing is that I think we need to leverage tools in tech tools to be able to deal with the magnitude of this issue and do it efficiently and gain control, right? So if the more you know, the more control you feel, and that helps you feel empowered. And I think that that's really important. But the limitation of the technology tools is that you should have a one-on-one, right? Like if you're experiencing this, you're going to have your person to talk to, right? You want your safe person. You want your parent to be a safe person. You want to have a therapist, right? So I think that the important thing is that these tools are useful in conjunction with like a support professional, right? So PTSD can be managed through different types of therapies and things like that. So, it would be helpful to find somebody for that.
Terrific. Perfect response.
I mean, I'd, highly recommend meditation for PTSD, but I also think it's experimentation. It's like food, not, everybody has their own perfect diet for themselves and their blood type and their physiology. So I feel like maybe experimenting with just using a few apps and just seeing, hey, does it make me feel good long term? Am I being proactive, and I'm actually connecting with business prospects? Am I being creative, creating things, or am I consuming passively? So I think it's a big experimentation for everyone.
Very astute. Very true. Very true. Mariela asks, I see such a difference between public school and private schools regarding the restrictions of the use of technology. Do any of the wonderful panelists know if there's anything being done for public schools to lower the use of technology and promote a more hands-on, offline instruction?
Oh, well, I know here in Miami-Dade County Public Schools, there is a no phone or cell phone policy in most of the classrooms. Of course, there's some teachers who invite that into their classroom as a part of the curriculum, but for the most part, there is a zero tolerance for outside technology. They do offer students laptops and computer labs and those things on site, but there is a policy in place that they are not supposed to have their cell phones out in the public school system.
But schools are using more and more technology to learn, and this is not going away. And this is why we need to catch up and be proactive, because this is the new world for our children. It's going to be online, and it might become more realistic to them than the real environment. So I think schools, we had those debates in our own schools, how much of writing on papers versus typing. It depends on the schools, but kids are going to have to be versed online to be good and to find jobs in the future.
So catching up is what this, oh, go ahead, Shiva.
I just wanted to mention, Ms. Marcia mentioned also with them consuming more of their news or real quote unquote information from technology, from social media and those things. We have to get back to the space of teaching reliability and validity and all those concepts as well, maybe even earlier on than we have in the past. Because I know in grad school and that you kind of learn those things, but maybe now we need to start to teach that foundation earlier on, because technology is such a large part of their educational experience. So we have to teach them that Wikipedia is not a source, and that kind of thing as well.
I'll add, by the way, it's interesting about the public, because I actually asked the students, because we're dealing with all of this right now. So I asked them how many of them had any education about misinformation or disinformation. 4 students had, 3 of them had gone to private schools. One went to but not in Florida, and one went to a public school out of state. I know California was looking at possibly requiring classes, and because they learned how to parse through media, how to check sources independently. So that's another thing. If parents get involved with their school boards and their PTA and say, this is really important, because you really cannot have a well-functioning democracy if people don't know what's true and what's not true. And I'll just add one more thing, and then we're about to close. There is a concept called the liar's dividend. Right. And it's really important in this context of fake news and all of these issues, that it's hard for people to know what is true, because between deep fakes, digital manipulation, and a concept of fake news, which did not exist when I was growing up, like the news was the news, right? It's easier for people to doubt something that might actually be true. Mm-hmm. So this is something we should also think about as we're dealing with the schools.
So since we are going to go over time, I'm going to not show the last slides. We're going to ask one more question. I'm going to tell everybody that we will be here. Well, those of you who got your tickets already to raise the bar or on the waiting list to raise the bar, you know, you'll be seeing more of the collaboration, ongoing collaboration between Christie House, 2 Million Children, and your Women's Fund. We have a lot of catching up to do. And your focus, all of you attendees, board members, community partners who are here, your focus is our power in this issue, of course, in all, but especially in this one. There's a lot of catching up to do. So if you can share, please, and connect with these amazing speakers, including our panelists, there's a lot of work to be done. It doesn't stop here. It just, you know, we're just running and trying to jump on that wheel. We invite you to come back to an amazing, wonderful panel the first Thursday of next month as well. In November, we've got another really amazing impact collaborative about, you know, sort of our children again, whose business is it, economic mobility for women, bosses for babies, innovation, all kinds of cool stuff. So we'll see you next month here on the first Thursday. But final question, for those of you who can stay, Emily, you mentioned that 2 of your co-founders are prosecutors. Could you, and then especially you, Marcia, address why the law doesn't suffice, right? There's some laws, but why the responsibility really lies on all of us. I'm sure everybody's got something to say. Just kind of like quick, let's popcorn to each one and give me your insights. Emily, do you want to start quickly first?
Yeah, I mean, it you know, also there's a lot of laws, parental, the Parental Act, and there's laws that kind of contradict each other. So I think, again, because there's so much stigma around this subject, some people would rather not make any move. So I think it's really about making this subject not taboo and opening up conversations so everybody's just more comfortable on coming up with new guidelines and putting in place proper guidelines in schools and communities to safeguard kids, against online attack.
Yeah. Why is it so hard?
I'll say just 2 quick things. When it comes to the deep fakes, there are people that are arguing, well, it could be art and it's not a real person, so it's not necessarily pornography. So you have that group of people. You actually have some people that are saying it's violating freedom of speech. There was an office of disinformation under the Biden administration that lasted 3 weeks, and the woman who led it was herself the victim of a deep fake right after that. So it's you'll see these kinds of issues come up where there are some powers that don't want to stop it, and there's always money to be made. And when money is involved in politics, it gets very difficult.
Toshiba.
I agree with all of what was said before, but I believe, just from my personal perspective, that we have to vote. Look at Gavin's Law. We really have to stand up and raise our voices in the communities and put those people in place who will be champions of our children and their safety, for sure.
Sandy, final comment on this.
Yeah, this emerging technology is a global issue with global impact and reach, and we have a lot of jurisdictional issues in play when we're trying to, manage and, hold people accountable for the harms. That's one of the biggest barriers.
Well, from our part, I'm going to say that I authorize 4 extra minutes onto the recording of this Impact Collaborative. So Danny, let's not cut this part off. We are so grateful and we're so committed to be working with all of you who've been in attendance today, everybody who's watching later, and all these amazing faces right here in the panel. We thank you for your expertise, and we know that next time we speak to you, you're going to have yet something new to add to the conversation. So we promise to keep on keeping the conversation going. Our focus is our power. May it last you throughout your days. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.